Welcome to Unveiled Radiance, podcast to help you strip away fear of aging. Hello, I'm Dr. Natalia, licensed naturopathic physician, aesthetic expert injector, and owner of Bloom Skincare. In each episode, we will discuss everything about skincare, strip away confusion about aesthetic medicine, and help you deeply understand what happens in your body as you start aging. We will invite expert opinion and, of course, science backed information to help you deeply understand you. This podcast is part of educational platform called Unveiled You, which I designed for women just like you to help you understand everything, not just about your skin, which is your largest body's organ, but everything that's happened to your body from puberty all the way through past menopause, and enjoy and embrace every stage of that beautiful life. Let's get started. I am Natalia Borokovsky, and welcome to Unveiled Radiance. Hello and welcome back, everyone. We are our newest episode of Unveiled Radiance, and today I sit down with a Sarah Khan. She is clinical nutritionist, not just some Instagram appointed wellness nutritionist guru. She is legit. She has a PhD level of nutrition education. And today we are going to zoom in on a very important butterfly shaped gland in your throat, thyroid gland. And specifically for Sarah, who personally shared this really personal story with us about her experience with the thyroid disease and how she battled this. So she, as a woman, as this beautiful young powerhouse woman, will share her personal experience, how she used nutrition to heal her thyroid. But before we get into this whole nitty-gritty details, Sarah, let me take a breath, introduce yourself, and tell listeners of who you are.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Khan. I'm a integrative and functional nutritionist, and I specialize in helping women who are dealing with autoimmune disease, gut health imbalances, as well as hormone imbalances. And just like Allie, we believe in a very functional nutrition integrative approach. So really looking at everything in the body, optimizing for every organ system, and treating the body as one whole instead of isolating and focusing on one organ.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your personal story. I know you shared with me prior to this recording that you suffered from Hashimoto thyroiditis. So for some people, it might be just a strange word, a mumbo jumbo of something, right? So let's talk about it. What is Hashimoto thyroiditis? Why, for so many women, it goes undiagnosed for many years and some of them the entire lifetime? And how it could be so sneaky when it shows on the labs, like your labs look completely normal and yet you don't feel good, right? So tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hashimoto's is autoimmune disease of the thyroid gland. So basically what's happening with every autoimmune disease, your body's attacking its own immune system. So with Hashimoto's, your body's attacking the thyroid gland. And that leads to a state of chronic inflammation. Inflammation gets like a bad rap, but inflammation is necessary and we need it in the short term, right? So you get a cut, you want inflammation to come, fix that cut, recover. But chronic inflammation becomes an issue when it's like your body's just under attack all the time. So that's what happens with Hashimoto's is that you have that attack on your thyroid organ that leads to chronic inflammation. And what happens for most women is eventually that chronic inflammation, that attack leads to hypothyroidism, so permanent damage to your thyroid gland, where you have to go on medication. And in countries where with iodine sufficiency, like this country, Hashimoto's is the number one cause of hypothyroidism. So it's really important to not just look at TSH when you're looking at thyroid, but also look at your antibody levels. And when you don't look at the antibody levels, every you get blood work done and everything looks fine, but in reality, you have that state of chronic inflammation. It's also just really important to know and ask your doctor for those tests, just because you can take proactive action and prevent that Hashimoto's from progressing to hypothyroidism.
Yes, yes. And I think that's what's so sneaky about the Hashimoto thyroiditis, because your thyroid gland is under attack of your own immune system, right? But the thyroid tried to fight it back. So at some day when you might be doing the blood work, your thyroid will appear completely normal. And it's true for so many women. Unless you have a doctor who understands the risks and symptoms of Hashimoto thyroiditis, it goes undiagnosed because not many doctors will check antibody levels, right? So what they
Yeah.
do, they check thyroid hormones, they see it's normal, and they say, oh, all your symptoms are in your head. So let's
Yes.
talk about it. What are the symptoms? How did you first feel like that something was off?
Yeah, so the symptoms are like it's fatigue, hair loss, especially around the eyebrow. It's also cold intolerance. Some women experience the inability to sweat, which is like an indicator that something is wrong. Also, it's poor liver detoxification. And mood swings. Your thyroid is an endocrine organ, so it's really regulating everything. So it's brain fog. That's a symptom that I have a lot of, and then just mood swings, mood disorders, really general feeling of. And then what happens a lot is women will go to the doctor and they tell doctors that they're having these symptoms, and the doctor's just like, "That's fine. You know, like, sometimes you're going to be tired. Sometimes you won't be able to focus. Sometimes you have sleep problems." So it's really important to advocate for yourself and say, like, no, there's something deeper going on. Like, I know my body, something is off. And I always tell people, unfortunately, autoimmune disease and Hashimoto's is becoming more common with time. You know, there's various reasons, the quality of our food, exposure to endocrine disruptors. Everything is just harder for us to maintain health. So always just go and ask to test it because it doesn't hurt. It's the same thing that you go, you could just order that additional antibody test.
Yes, yes. I think you're absolutely right. It's important to remind women that you are need to be your own advocate. So if you go to one doctor and that doctor being very dismissive, find a different specialist. There are other doctors there, it doesn't matter men or women, who are willing to listen, who are willing to dig deep and to figure out why you're feeling the way you're feeling. But into a little bit of a doctor's defense there, if the woman just come to a doctor and say, well, I just feel always very, very tired, that's not a symptom. I mean, it is a symptom, but it's such a vague symptom because there's millions of different disease, anything from very benign, such as stress and lack of sleep, to something so life-changing like cancer that have exactly the same symptoms of fatigue. So be very specific, be very transparent with the doctor because ultimately every tiny little detail that you might think is insignificant actually gives doctors clues to understand really what is off in your body. Because like for example with a thyroid deficiency, right, if the Hashimoto is getting to the point that your thyroid is actually low, you did say that there's a very interesting symptom as an inability to sweat, right? A lot of women would actually dismiss that because they might just say like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing that I'm not sweating, you know, I don't have to wear deodorant. I mean, that's not a bad side effect, but it's very important. And it
Yes.
also comes together with your digestion because other common symptom is constipation. So having regular bowel movements, and we're going to start talking about digestion and nutrition, this is just shows that very tight connection from thyroid to your digestive tract, right? So obviously when your thyroid is really high, diarrhea is very common because think about a thyroid as your main metabolism controlling gland. So if your metabolism high, you're losing a lot of weight. You might have dark circles in your skin. Your skin is going to look really dull and dry. And it doesn't matter how much great nutritional food you eat, it's kind of flashed all the way down through your digestive tract, causing diarrhea. And then the opposite happens with a thyroid deficiency when everything kind of sits because your metabolism significantly slowed down. And now you're suffering from weight gain. Even if you change absolutely nothing nutritionally, your body just holds on to that extra weight in the food you ate. And then it causes constipation. So that is a very important symptoms. And then we go into connect the dots now and talk about specifically about nutrition, right? Because obviously you're a nutritionist. We need to know, what did you change in your lifestyle and what your approach was to nutrition in order to help yourself to heal from this disease?
Yeah. So first off, the gut, like to your point, it's very important. Everything is important, but 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. And with autoimmune disease, it's a disorder of the immune system. It's that chronic inflammation. So the first thing I really did was focus on my gut health. And I always tell people like what you do for one thing, what you do for your gut is good for everything else. It's good for your liver, it's good for blood sugar, it's good for your mood. And with gut, it's really just increasing fiber. So that's what's going to feed your gut microbiome, specifically prebiotic fiber, but just diversity of fiber. Like, you know, prebiotic fiber includes onion, leeks, asparagus, jicama, beans, lentils are extremely good source of prebiotic fiber. So I just really added a lot more fiber into my diet. Being really mindful to eat fiber, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Diversity is really important too with everything. You want to kind of, when they say eat the rainbow, there's a lot of validity to that statement. The different colors are indicative of like what different content and different vitamins are. So being mindful to like when I go to the grocery store, grabbing different vegetables I did the week before. That not only helped my gut health, but it also really helped my blood sugar. I had really dysregulated blood sugar. It was like pre-diabetic, and it's because I was eating like mostly carbs, some protein, but I wasn't eating enough fiber. I was barely eating enough like that monounsaturated, polyunsaturated fat that's so good for you. So, including extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, olives at every meal, huge difference. And it made a big difference in satiety. So I always tell people like I love a nurse first approach. Like I think it's way more important to get the right stuff in than kind of strip your diet of everything you think is like quote unquote bad. That leads to more satiety, and that will lead to like you being able to maintain a healthy weight with your body. It's like fat, protein, it's going to keep you satiated. These simple carbs is stay away from, like your white bread, your white pasta. You can eat so much of, and then you're hungry 2 minutes later. So that made a huge difference. And when it comes to skin health, like these polyphenol rich compounds that come from like these bright leaf fruits and vegetables, like berries, leafy greens, extra virgin olive oil, spices. I always tell people spices and tea are so underrated. They're so easy to incorporate, and especially source of antioxidants, antimicrobial activities. Like I love sumac, so rich in antioxidants. It tastes amazing, and you just put it on everything that you eat. And just have fun with it. Like oregano, rose. Just go and try different spices. Use them. Tea, I love tea. Hibiscus tea, amazing for your skin. So rich in vitamin C. So good for blood flow. So blood flow is so important for your skin. You want everything to go. And when you have low thyroid production, it impacts your blood flow and oxygenation. So you want something that's going to help increase nitric oxide, help increase that blood flow throughout your body. Hibiscus tea is such a great way to do this. And then it's also so rich in antioxidants, so rich in vitamin C, also so great for your skin. Another thing that's really important is like increasing antioxidants, so more vitamin C rich foods I included. So being mindful of making sure every day I ate some foods that were rich in vitamin C, whether that was like citrus fruits, red bell pepper, just incorporating every day. Vitamin E, like eating sunflower seeds every day or avocado. The other thing I did that really helped with the blood sugar regulation because I was eating more balanced meals. My meals had protein, fiber, and complex carbs. So really complex carb, switching to more eating more sweet potatoes, following the principle of creating more resistant starch in my carbs. So cooking my rice, putting it in the fridge, so cooling it, and then reheating it. And when you do that with starches, it forms resistant starch. And what that does is it doesn't absorb by the small intestine, but becomes fuel and food for your microbiome. So just reinforcing gut health, helping with blood sugar regulation. And then the other piece I really focused on was like my liver health. So really boost detoxification capabilities. And there's so many nutrients that help your liver work well. So for example, antioxidants again are super important because your liver, there's two phases of detoxification. There's phase one, phase two, and then phase three, which is excretion. So phase one creates a lot of oxidative stress. You want antioxidants to kind of combat that oxidative stress. So again, with vitamin C, vitamin E, more polyphenol-rich foods that are high in antioxidants. And then your liver needs a lot of nutrients. So making sure I was getting enough B vitamins, enough sulforaphane, precursor to glutathione. So just adding broccoli sprouts, which have like 100 times more sulforaphane than mature grown broccoli. Easy way to kind of just my liver. So really being mindful to get the right nutrients to support these organs and optimize for them. Then the last thing was really going to my doctor to get some further blood work done to see if I had any nutrient deficiencies. So my iron and my ferritin were low, so being more mindful of incorporating more, grass beef into my diet. So every week, making sure I had it 2, 3 times a week to get that up. I did supplement in the beginning, but my goal is always to kind of wean off the supplement and get it from food sources. And food is so rich, there's so many other nutrients. You always kind of want to do your food first and then looking at my copper ratio, looking at my magnesium levels. So just looking there and like optimizing my vitamin D levels, my omega-3 levels, and just optimizing for there. There's one or two supplements that I always recommend for the long term. And one is vitamin D, and you want to take vitamin D with K. And then the other one is, those are just hugely impactful for immune modulation, inflammation support. I mean, vitamin D is amazing. It also influences your gut microbiome. You know, it leads to growth of more beneficial bacteria and reduces growth of pathogenic bacteria. So just really broad, based improvements from it.
Yeah, well, that's all really, really wonderful tips. So, since we on talk about nutrition and supplements, I am 100% agree with you. I really don't like recommending patients to swallow a lot of pills because our body uses nutrients that we are getting from food as long as you have a proper digestion and you're absorbing your nutrients, which probably kind of like a different topic and different talk. We can record a different podcast about that. But as long as you're absorbing your nutrients correctly, your digestive tract is functioning 100%, you really should get all your nutrition from food.
Yes.
But speaking specifically about the thyroid health, the nutrient or microelement that's important for thyroid health is selenium, right?
Yes.
So what is
Yes.
selenium is important for? It helps our body to convert T4, which is inactive form of a thyroid hormone, to T3. And for women who don't have enough selenium in their body, in their bloodstream, that T3 becomes a broken molecule. We call it reverse T3, which is
Yes.
almost like I explained to my patients, if the active thyroid T3 is a key that unlocks metabolism in your cells, the broken, it's a key that has the little knobs turn the opposite way, so you cannot stick into the lock and unlock that gate into metabolism. So then body has to recycle it again, turn it back into T4, and then create another T3, and it's all selenium dependent process. So which food would you recommend for patients to get more selenium in their diet?
Yeah, so there's a couple. So I've seen in patients sometimes it's very dose dependent in people. So I always recommend food for most people. They get it from food. So Brazil nuts are amazing. Really, 1 to 2 is all you need, and also very rich in antioxidants. The other one is sardines are like also a really great source of selenium, and also rich in omega-3, rich in B12. These are all really critical for thyroid health. And then the last one is I love pasture raised eggs. It's like a multivitamin. It's got like your bees, it has choline, like it has selenium. It's so rich. So like I love recommending a savory breakfast for people. So, like a 3 egg omelet, tons of veggies, side of avocado, potato. Just a really great way to get your metabolism started, get your day started, and fuel yourself with like healthy protein, which is also rich in selenium.
Yes, yes. And then speaking of eggs, it's another thing because I do know some patients who say like, I'm not going to eat egg yolk because it increases my cholesterol, which is, we all know that's really not true. But egg yolk is important because it's also rich in sulfur. And we just talk about how important sulfur is for the liver detoxification pathways. That's a
Yes.
glutathione, which is your master antioxidant and detoxifier. So to support that powerful molecule, we do need sulfur. So you obviously cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, all the stuff that kind of stinks when you cook it, and then the
Yeah.
egg yolks, they're all fantastic sources of selenium. So
Yeah.
since we are kind of starting to talk about practical tips, let's give some shortcuts to our listeners for food swaps, right? So the common things that people typically eat and how they can easily swap it for something a little bit more nutritious. Because we
Yeah.
always about the nutrient dense foods, not calorie dense foods, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so a couple, I love simple carbs, like your white bread, white pasta, to complex carbs, and preferably from whole food based sources. So switch out your white bread, your white pasta to baked sweet potatoes as your carb source, or just baked regular potatoes if you like that, or like lentils is actually a complex carb, or quinoa. I would say like find what you like, switch it up so you don't get bored. You also see plantains is also amazing, so rich in prebiotic fiber. Switch it up, just try it, and like you'll see, you feel so much more satiated from those complex core whole food sources than you do from like your It's also worth mentioning that gluten is for a lot of people. There's molecular markers, the gliadin, the protein in gluten that resembles your thyroid. And your immune system doesn't look at things with so much specificity. So when you eat that gluten, it kind of increases the attack on your thyroid. So I would say at least gluten light or switch to like a sourdough bread. But I always prefer these like whole food sources like sweet potatoes, quinoa, plantains, lentils, chickpeas are just great sources to swap out for.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then since we just talking about the actual diets now, right? Let's buff some myths because if you look at social media, there's always some new fad diet that just, being promoted right now that it's great for everybody. It's going to make you lose a lot of weight. It's going to make you age backwards. You get the picture, right? But how much truth in those diets and what actually works and what doesn't? And what's your approach? Do you recommend specific diet to patients?
No, I don't ever recommend a specific diet to patients. I think the one thing I'll do say is like switch to a more whole food diet, limit processed food, and limit added sugar. Those are like just some principles I like to follow through. Another thing I will say is, and I have a much greater appreciation for this now, is like you can look at research all day and it has really valuable input. But there's a couple of things. One, most studies are not done on humans, they're done on animals. Animals and humans are not a one to one. Two, you want to see who that study was done on. A lot of research is done on men, and it's because it's easier. Men's hormones are like this; it doesn't change. Women's hormone changes every week of their cycle. Then there's perimenopause, then there's menopause, then there's pregnancy, then there's postpartum. So it's a lot more difficult to do research on women than it is to do on men. So that is something you have to be mindful of. The last thing is good research is like looking at a good sample size is like 100 people. That's a really good sample size. But that's not including like there's so many confounding variables. They're not genetically identical. They weren't put in the same room, fed the same thing, use the same products, exercise the same. So just because you read something in research or see something on the internet doesn't mean that it's true for everyone. So there is a level of a little bit of a trial and error. So maybe like sardines really work for you, but they might not work for me. So maybe, it provides. So it's really important to be in touch with your body, really understand what's working, what's not, and not follow just one protocol or one guideline. You really want personalized support for you, your genetics, but also for your lifestyle. Like a big pillar for me is sustainability. You can follow these like keto and paleo diets, but they're extremely restrictive. And I see a lot of people go on them, develop a lot of nervous system dysregulation because they have so much anxiety around food. And nervous system regulation is very, very important for thyroid health. When your adrenal glands are producing a lot of cortisol, your TSH, which is your thyroid regulator, is going to go down. Your nervous system is always going to want to reduce cortisol. So anytime that is elevated, anytime you have anxiety, everything else in your body is just going to be deflated to support that cortisol. So also just really important. Make changes, make them slowly, see how they impact you, and make sure this is something you can follow for the long term and not just for the short term.
Yes, you touch on so many important points. So let me just kind of highlight them so listeners pay attention. Number one, in my approach to following any diets, it always comes from the point of punishment and restriction.
Yes,
And food is pleasure and nourishment. So
yes,
if we teach ourselves that point of nourishment, and I love what's on my plate, I mean,
yes,
obviously, the love you also can be for a Starbucks Frappuccino or a McDonald's sandwich. That's not the point. We're talking about falling in love with nutritious food, what's good for your body and good for your nervous system. It's good for all your pleasure senses. It increases your dopamine. And you're absolutely right. We, as a nutritionist, as a physicians, we don't recommend people specific rigid diet because we want patients to play around. We want them to try different things. We also want them to really fall in love with vegetables, with sardines. And if they hate it, try different. There's 100+ edible plants on this planet and they're all wonderful and nutritious. So silly things like I don't like vegetables make me laugh because I always ask a question, which one? Because most of those people probably tried one or two, like, oh, I hate broccoli. But hello, there's other cruciferous vegetables that you can try, right? And you can also cook it differently. If you really
yes,
hate broccoli so much, blend it and turn it into a sauce. So you don't really taste the broccoli, but you still get the nutrition out of this. So that is a very important point. The other important point is obviously stress level when you're following the rigid diet, right? When you're coming from the point of restriction and also something that generates that anxiety and stress, what does your body do at the point of stress? Your body does not understand the difference if you're running away from a lion or if you
Yes.
just stress about what's going to be on your plate the next meal. Its
Yes.
approach is the same way. It sends all the blood to your muscles, so you're ready to run, your heart is racing, and your digestive system is paralyzed. So if
Yes.
you're trying to eat this nutritious food that you forcefully feed yourself, you're also not absorbing it because it's
Yes.
all just sitting there. It's either rotting because it's completely paralyzed, or it's flushing all the way down the toilet because you have diarrhea. So either one is not nutritious. So obviously
Yes.
having that moment of a meal, slowing down, appreciating the meal. It's another reason why I always recommend patients to cook at home. And that's
Yes.
because you're starting with a ritual. You're starting cooking, smelling, cutting. You're preparing your system for digestion. You're already starting to salivate. You're starting to secrete all the stomach acids. And that is
Yes.
so important. If you just run through Starbucks drive through, even if you got like, not so bad things like their egg bites, I mean, they're not too terrible. They still have
Yeah.
the fillers and the other stuff added to it. But if you're traveling, I get it. Maybe as a shortcut, you can do it once in a while. But to do it every morning, and as you're driving it and you're consuming in the car, you're doing such a disservice to your body. You're not absorbing most of the stuff that you ate. And you're flushing down with a lot of simple carbohydrates, all that sugar from Frappuccino that you just ordered. So, and then we know we talked about the disadvantages of having those sugar spikes and how it's affecting your endocrine system and your nervous system and everything in between.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I always tell people, even just like before you eat, just like our modern society has like taught us that you're eating your lunch in front of your desk, you're answering emails, you're answering Slack calls. Turn your laptop off, take 5 deep breaths, reshift into your parasympathetic system, and then chew your food. Digestion starts in the mouth. The more you chew, the more the digestion juices salivary, the more breakdown, easier it will be to digest. You won't be as bloated. Every woman I work with and man complains about bloating. That is one simple, simple hack to reduce bloating. You know, take 5 deep breaths, really chew your food, enjoy it. Like you cooked this meal, you prepared it, or maybe you bought it. Just really enjoy it. Sit with it, enjoy it, chew your food. It makes a world of a difference because you are what you digest. So if you're not digesting, you're eating an amazing diet, but you're not getting anything out of it.
Absolutely. We are so got disconnected from the ritual of consuming food. And it used to be such as preparing food and consuming food, typically with your family, with your friends, for every single meal. And when I travel, for example, I go to Europe, I see people taking 2 hour lunch breaks. I know in our workaholic American society, we'll never do that. But even if you took a half an hour lunch break, but you
Yes.
had an intentional break, not scrolling to social media, but to really
Yes.
sitting down with your lunch, looking at the food and see, oh my God, look at this beautiful, colorful salad. This is so nutritious and wonderful for me. And like you say, taking these few deep breaths and really engaging with the process of chewing, digesting, and receiving the nourishment, right? So important, absolutely. So as we wrap it up, and I think it's been fantastic conversation, and I hopefully our listeners understand how strongly connected everything is: your thyroid, your glow, your radiance, your digestive system, and your brain, your nervous system, right? So everything has to be nourished, everything has to be in place. And then decisions that you make about your nutrition really have to come from the point of self love. You're doing it to yourself because you love yourself enough to nourish and to slow down. So that's
Yes.
really the steps of cure, right? So let's finish it up and you tell listeners how they can find you. If they want to work with a nutritionist, what's the process? How they visit you on the website, social media. What are your nutritional programs? How you help women to get to the best state of health?
Yeah. So I'd love to connect with anyone over Instagram. And then my Instagram handle is sarah.k_nutritionist. I also have a website. You could visit me on my website. I offer free 15-minute consultations. So that's a great way for me to kind of go over my approach, kind of understand what you're looking for, make sure I'm the right fit for you. I always want to make sure that I'm the right person for you to support you on your nutrition journey. And if I'm not, I always try to find you someone who is a good fit for you. And what my nutrition programs really focus on is you only work with me. We meet for an hour every month. It's full concierge support. So you have 24/7 email access to me. I provide you with a personalized roadmap of how we're going to work through and fix your health and address it. And then I take, just like we talked about here, a real whole system approach. So really looking to optimize for everything. Education is really important for me. So you feel empowered to like go, after we stop working together, you feel fully equipped to take up your health on. So providing education tips for managing blood sugar, for improving liver detoxification capacity, improving gut health, working on your mitochondria. So it's super important for everything. Circadian rhythm dysregulation, nervous system regulation. So really going through everything and making sure that you understand how to support your body. And then again, personalized approach is very important to me. Like we talked about here, like these certain specific diets or protocols don't work. Really looking at you, your individual genetics, what you need, and also your lifestyle. Like, what does your day to day look like? Building these nutrition, lifestyle habits around that, so you don't feel so overburdened by these recommendations.
So wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to finish on this last important note to all our listeners. Nutrition has to be meaningful. So take time, prep ahead, plan your next meal, because if you just leave it to a chance, you're more likely to eat something that your body probably doesn't need. You're more likely to go to drive through and eat on the run. So your body deserves to take breaks. Your body deserves to plan ahead. So I know food prep is a really big deal, but it's not always has to be some kind of big complicated food prep you only do on Sundays. It's just on the evening you kind of plan ahead and thinking like, what am I going to have for lunch and breakfast? And that's sometimes enough. So you don't leave it to a chance, and you just allow yourself to take that breaks and consume the wonderful nutrition to nourish your body, your skin, and everything. And obviously the glow will follow. It's not going to happen overnight, but once it's there and it's yours, and no serums and creams can ever replace that.
Yes, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yes. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure. You have a wonderful day. And we're going to post all the information below this episode so you can find Sarah. You can go to her website and social media and connect with this brilliant, wonderful nutritionist.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you today.
Thank you for joining me on Unveiled Radiance. If this episode resonates with you, please share with someone you love, with another woman who might need to hear this information. And for full experience, head to unveilyou.life, where we share everything about skin, hormones, and even self confidence. Until the next time, thank you for joining me, and please take care of yourself from inside and out.